Support for the show comes from Carolina Forward, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to building a more equitable, democratic, and prosperous North Carolina.
You can learn more about their vision and values at carolinaforward.org.
This next episode was recorded on location. We were not in Alamance County. This is the first non-Alamance County based episode we've recorded.
I think, yeah.
We were like right over the county line.
That's right.
We were in Sedalia, the Palmer Memorial Institute at the Charlotte Hawkins Brown State Historic Site, which was a boarding school for students of color throughout the 20th century. Very prestigious boarding school. Dr. King's brother was a student there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
There's a photo of him in Life magazine. Everybody's praying and he's got his eyes open. Which, I look at that and I'm like, that's me. Anyway, we caught up with Congressman Jeff Jackson on the campaign trail. And I don't know about you, Quinn, but this was like a big holler bucket list moment for me.
Oh, without a doubt. Definitely when we were talking about it, I saw Jeff come through with his 100 county campaign twice. And since then, and of course, following him on his social media, the most followed politician in America on TikTok. And the fact that we could get him on our show, and we talked about it. We're like, man, how cool would it be if we could ever get...
He's the most followed politician on TikTok? I didn't know that. Oh, wow. That's cool. Okay, yeah. Super cool. Well, it's an even bigger deal than I thought. So, folks, please enjoy this conversation as much as we did. And without further ado, Congressman Jeff Jackson.
North Carolina State Highway Patrol.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
And welcome back to the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray.
Friends and neighbors, we are honored to welcome Congressman Jeff Jackson. He is a true American patriot and dedicated public servant. Jeff's journey into politics began in 2014 when he became the second youngest senator in the North Carolina State Senate, but his commitment to service started a long time before that. He's had over 20 years at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Congressman. Is it 20 years? How many years in the National Guard?
21.
21 years.
Wow. It can drink.
Of military service. You're currently a major?
Yeah.
That's right? And then that time has included a deployment to Afghanistan. So Congressman Jackson is no stranger to service. He's known for his transparency, accessibility, and candor in politics. He's been a leading voice in the fight against gerrymandering, discriminatory legislation like HB 2, or as we know it here, the bathroom bill. Mm-hmm. And he's known for investments and fighting for investments in education and healthcare. And then earlier this year, he had a much lauded appearance on The Daily Show. And after that, Congressman Jackson decided he was ready for the big leagues. So he's here today on the Hometown Holler.
Here we go.
Congressman, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. Well, so now that everybody knows who Jeff is, I want to ask Jeff, who is Jeff?
That's the first question. Who is Jeff? That's a big way to lead off here, man. All right, we're getting real introspective. Jeff's a dad. I got 3 kids, and I spend as much time with them these days as I can, but that's not a lot. So Jeff is a dad who's also a candidate and who feels guilty about the amount of time he spends away from his family, but knows that this is a really important undertaking and that running for a statewide office requires a total commitment. So even though we're, as a family, doing something that's basically unsustainable, it's time limited, and that's how we justify that. I spend most of my time either in D.C. or traveling North Carolina right now. So I'm someone who's in the process of getting an amazing education, because when you get to go to all parts of your state, you learn how big it really is. You learn how culturally diverse it really is. You get a real visceral sense of what people's needs are, what they're worried about. And all of that adds up to an amazing world-class education in the state you've lived in your entire life, or almost your entire life in my case. So that's who I am right now.
Right now.
Right now.
And
Yeah.
you kind of touched on the fact that right now you're wearing lots of hats, right?
Yeah.
Husband, father, congressman, soldier. Each of these roles has unique demands and responsibilities. And I'm curious, do you have any strategies or hobbies or diversions that help you maintain? I don't want to say balance, because I don't know that balance is possible necessarily, but I guess the question is, how do you stay sane? How do you maintain sanity?
I think you're right about the balance.
Yeah.
Someone told me there's no balance. It's just a juggle, and you try not to drop any balls, but you drop them all the time.
That's right.
Right.
So you just try to pick them up as quick as you can. My thing is, I try to say yes when my kids ask to spend time with me. So when I am home, sometimes my daughter will come up, I'll be at my desk, and she's 5 years old, and she'll say, "Dad, will you be the monster on the trampoline?" And that's like her favorite thing in the world. And so I try to always say yes to that, even if it's yes in 15 minutes.
Right,
Sure.
I will
right.
be the monster on the trampoline. As long as I'm doing at least the minimum with my kids right now, I'm sane. There are certain stretches of time where I know I'm falling below the minimum. That happens when I have to spend a week in DC, and then I have drill that weekend, and then I have another week in DC. So when I got to go 2 weeks without seeing my kids, then I'm falling below the minimum.
Yeah.
And the first thing I have to do when I get home on Saturday is just block out time. And that's for bike riding. We're going to build a birdhouse. We're going to do something like somewhat memorable.
Going to be the monster on the trampoline.
Yeah, going to be a super monster on the trampoline.
And I know that feeling. I have a 5-year-old as well. And actually, when you were doing your 100-county run, you came through. We saw you in Alamance and Burlington. And at this time, I think my daughter was like 3. And you asked her what her favorite Disney movie was. And I think your daughter's was Lion King for the longest time.
Yeah,
And
that's the best.
She told ours, Addie's was Moana. And so, yeah, I definitely, I've been watching from afar because I'm like, man, how do you do it?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I appreciate the answer with the kids, but when you are in DC and you come back to your apartment, what does Jeff do in the apartment? Are you Netflix scrolling? Are you playing a Switch?
Dude, he's going to the Smithsonian. It's DC.
That's right. That's right. That's what he's got to be doing.
Yeah, I haven't made it to the National Archives yet. That's on my list. A lot of people have recommended that. They say before you leave, depart, you should make a point of going there because they'll pull cool stuff for you. Tell them in advance, hey, I'm coming. Here's the things I'm interested in. So that's sort of on the list.
Is that only because you're a congressman, or is that just like citizens' rights? We can tell them certain things. I've never been to the archives. So
Honestly, I don't know. I had another member of Congress tell me, so I'm unclear
Cool.
as to whether
Could be
that's
like,
how
congressional
widely
privilege.
enjoyed that privilege really is. I don't know. I'll find out.
Regardless, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, but no, I really don't get to do fun stuff that's just educational that often. When I go back to my apartment, there is a desk, a chair, no TV.
No TV.
No TV. I put my laptop down. I open it up. I start making food. I got a little air fryer. I throw some chicken in the air fryer. I start making some rice. I sit down. I start working. I work for 3 or 4 hours.
And
That's it.
what is work? What is working?
Working is often related to the committees that I'm on.
Okay.
I would say most of my bandwidth in DC goes to either the Armed Services Committee or the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, which is a piece of serving in Congress that people don't really see. What they see is the antics on the floor, the House floor, or maybe a couple committees that are really TV committees that are there for people to audition for cable news that evening.
Sure.
But the committees that I'm on, they don't fall into those categories. There's more actual work to be done, and that's great. And I sort of wish more people, and I definitely wish more people could see that part of Congress. They would feel better about Congress if there were more visibility on the less super partisan aspects of it.
Right. Makes total sense.
I always thought C-SPAN should have like cage fights. That would really up the viewer count.
Especially after Dana White came out with UFC.
Absolutely, man. One thing that when we heard that you were going to come on the holler, I wanted to ask you about was, tracing your trajectory in politics back. Right now, you're running for AG. You've been in Congress for a term. Before that, you're in the state Senate. Was this all a plan, or at what point did you decide to enter politics? Because your biography is a very impressive political biography, even before you were in the state Senate. I mean, I watching interviews and reading about you, you enlisted in the military after 9/11, which is a very, which is, I don't know, your political biography to me is just quintessentially American and inspiring. And I'm wondering if it just kind of along the way, opportunities opened and you decided that, what, this is for me, or if this from an early point, you saw the finish line and thought, this is where I want to end up.
When I was in law school, I remember having some thoughts about on the bucket list, serving in office belongs there. I sort of saw that in my like 40s or 50s. What I knew the next thing was going to be was serving as an assistant DA. So I went and did that for several years and was going to do it for many more years. And then at the end of court one day, almost exactly 10 years ago, actually, this defense attorney came up and said, Jeff, did you hear the news? I said, no, what happened? He said, the mayor of Charlotte was just arrested by the FBI for taking bribes from undercover FBI agents.
You can't do that.
And I remember I said, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I just went on about my day. Didn't
Right.
have anything to do with me, the same way it
Right.
wouldn't have anything to do with you. The mayor stepped down the next day. They picked my state senator to become the new mayor, and then I was picked to replace him pretty much clear out of the blue. I had never run for office. I didn't really know anyone who had run for office. My last trip to the General Assembly was on the third grade field trip.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
All I could remember about the building is that it had like a really red carpet. And it does. If you've ever been there, it's the reddest
super
carpet you've
red.
ever seen. And then all of a sudden, I was there. And I remember thinking, at one point, I was 6 weeks away from being a state senator and had no idea.
Wow.
A ton of this was an accident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of almost feels like, I mean, if your life is ever made into a movie, and I'm not, there's always those movies where like you see the 6-year-old kid pass the music store and there's a guitar, and the kid looks at it, oh, it's a guitar, and it's Paul McCartney, right? And we know the audience, like, oh my gosh, it's the guitar, and we know he's going to be the Beatles, right? So that's kind of the moment in your life where like, oh, did you hear, Jeff, the mayor of Charlotte, man, he took, that's really,
That was a pivotal
that's
moment.
that moment, right, where the audience is watching. It's like, oh, he's going to be in Raleigh in 6 weeks. And I was reading on your Wikipedia page. Is it true that you won that appointment by one vote?
I won by one vote on the second round of votes.
And
no one got
that-
a majority the first time.
That is amazing to me because, I mean, right, one person has a change of conscience, and you're not in the room right now talking to us, most likely.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and
My
I just
whole life, completely different. And
And that wasn't a public vote, though.
no, it was precinct.
Yeah, it was precinct. That's right. Because
Yeah.
that's how we fill vacancies in North Carolina. So it was the precinct leaders and any Democratic elected officials in that district. So that amounted to 50 people. One of them, the state senator, recused himself. So it was 49. I got 25 votes on the second round. And
Do you know who it was?
I do.
Oh wow. Well,
do.
That's great.
she told me. She told me before the results came in, which is how I know that she's telling me the truth.
Wow. That's how you know.
Fair.
That's fantastic. So this wasn't something that you charted out senior year of high school.
couldn't
and
possibly.
There's no way, right?
No,
it was
there's
just
no way.
fate. Yeah. So really things just fell into place along the way. Well, you've in one of your interviews that I saw, you talked about somebody asked you the question that every politician gets asked, where they ask you, well, in 5 years from now, are you going to be president or a governor? What's next? And the response you gave was, well, people who have a compulsion to feel useful, to be useful, usually find a way to be useful, and that takes many shapes. And I'm curious, who inspired you to be useful?
I remember in law school, I had occasion to cross paths with then Representative Greer Martin, a veteran. He has now recently been appointed Secretary of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs in North Carolina. But he talked to me about what it was like to serve in the military. He's in the reserve. And also serve in the state legislature. And it was the first time I'd have a conversation with somebody who I sort of saw myself being roughly similar to, who seemed miles above where
Right.
I was. And yet, like, he was a real person. And he got there in sort of a logical way. And it's so helpful to have those moments where someone demystifies tremendous achievement.
Right.
All of a sudden, this becomes real and not just fiction, not something that happens to other people, but something that could happen to you.
That's right.
Having that conversation. And then I had occasion to meet with Representative Becky Carney, who was my state House member and who still serves. And getting to speak to her was another sort of experience of grounding this illusion of serving in the state legislature, which had felt like a million miles away. So just the benefit of two, honestly, random conversations
Right.
with people who happen to serve there really inform. I remember almost every word of both of those conversations. I was like, oh, this is like the mountain come to me. This is like a real person who's doing a thing that I could do one day.
Right.
But again, I thought I was going to be like in my 50s.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of how I thought about with teachers. Like growing up, you see your teacher and they're this idol, this thing. They're different than everybody else.
They don't exist outside of school.
Right. And then, you graduate college, you have a lot of friends that are teachers, and you're like, oh, man, they fart just like us.
Yeah. Well, boy, do we.
They're people.
I think it's fantastic that you had people who made politics possible for you or made politics seem possible, because I think that's exactly what you're doing now, is making politics seem accessible and possible. And I think it's just really cool that you're paying that forward. Concerning your military service, do you come from a family of veterans? I mean, was that part of kind of the expectation of, no?
No, shocked my folks. I was thinking about doing Teach for America. I had some friends who were thinking about it, and we were sort of all thinking about it together, and then September 11th happened, and I thought, well, I'm a healthy young guy. I feel like my country is about to get into a big fight. I better go and be a part of this. I honestly thought I was going to be a part of like a wave of enlistees from my college. I was not.
No.
I remember walking in I Googled the local recruiting station. It was in a little strip mall. It was next to a Subway. So I parked, I went into the Subway. I had a meatball sub. I contemplated that I really wanted to do this. And then I walked into the recruiting station, and the recruiter was sitting in the back of a table. And as soon as I walked in, he slammed the table and he goes, "We've been waiting for you, son." And I was like, this is great. I'm already getting special treatment,
Man, I can't believe you thought that way, because when 9/11 happened, I was in high school, and I was going up to the Naval Academy every summer to do wrestling camps. And my family's from a military background, so I thought I was going to go to the Naval Academy and wrestle. Then 9/11 happened, and it scared the crap out of me. And I didn't have the cojones that you did, where you were ready to Google the recruitment office and go down there. Nobody was waiting for me, because I was not waiting on them. So I commend you on doing that.
Well, since we're all sharing September 11th reminiscences, I was 6 years old.
That's so bizarre.
I had been 6 years old for exactly about a week. And I remember it was on a Tuesday, because we had art lessons on Tuesday. And we got, I was out picking blackberries. And I had just been on top of the World Trade Centers the previous summer. My family took me up to New York, saw the museums, and went on top of the towers, and came inside and was literally watching Good Morning America with my family, and saw what happened live. And it was the first time in my life when I realized adults are not in control. I distinctly remember my mom calling my dad, art lessons not happening today, and just kind of seeing chaos within the home and chaos around the country, and that persisted, obviously. And it really, at that age, taught me that everything is delicate. Everything is very delicate for everybody, all of the time.
How old
You're
were
basically
you?
the youngest person who's going to remember. Like, no one younger than you is going to remember.
No, and that's what separated when I became a teacher. That's what I really think. I started teaching high school at 21. I was young, and I was teaching seniors, and they were like, "You're our generation." I said, "No, we're not, because I remember 9/11."
Yeah.
And you don't. It's history for you. It's a memory for me.
Interesting.
And that really was kind of the dividing line.
When I showed up to the General Assembly and was half the average age, the way I made friends with a lot of the more senior members, I would just go around and I would say, "Tell me about the moon landing."
There you go.
And they were like, "Oh, it was amazing. I was at my girlfriend's dad's house and we watched it."
Yeah,
Everybody remembered,
That's hilarious.
Landing on the moon. It's
Yeah. Do you miss the General Assembly?
There are parts about it that I miss.
I mean, I'm sure it's kind of similar to Congress, but also wildly different.
One of the big differences is that because the level of media coverage is drastically less, the incentives for misbehavior are smaller. A ton of the misbehavior, ton of the people just acting like jerks, frankly, in Congress are faking it for attention. They're treating their job in Congress as a daily audition for cable news.
I've heard you refer to it as the outrage Olympics.
Yes, they're participating every day to see if they can get gold, because if you get gold, then you get amplified by a number of these networks. And so those incentives don't exist in anywhere near the same magnitude in the state legislature. So you just get less performative behavior.
But also, does that mean, because there's not as much coverage, does that mean things are more able to happen in secret, and there's less?
A double-edged sword.
That's right.
Completely. There used to be a bunch of local newspapers all around North Carolina, and those papers would all send reporters to the General Assembly. That place was crawling with reporters from Salisbury and I'm sure Burlington.
Yeah, well,
right?
we were just talking about that yesterday. We had the Times News here. I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about how every week 2 local newspapers shuts down. Right.
There's no money to be made.
There's no money to be made, and communities are suffering because we don't have those reporters in the halls talking to representatives, and as a result, secrets.
I remember walking out of a committee once, and someone walked. I was talking to this person walking next to me. I said, "What just happened in there? was amazing. Like, that's definitely newsworthy.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, you should just break the news. And it completely changed how I thought about using social media. I was like, oh, right, I don't have an editor. I don't have to put anything. I can just tell people exactly I can use, it was just Facebook and Twitter, right? I can use these two platforms and just tell people in real time, here's exactly what just happened.
Yeah.
Completely changed how I approached
Was
it.
the reception pretty instantaneous? People wanting to know and people being
absolutely
excited?
instantaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing how it works on both spectrums, where you're trying to inform us and let us know, and not try to just rouse everybody. When there's other people that'll, Trump will sit around and just truth his stuff out.
Two very different styles of communication.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. So in the GA, being different, I still want to kind of stay on this. I would assume that you had more close relationships with folks. Have you been able to make relationships with your colleagues up in DC?
I have, primarily with the ones I've spent time around, which are three different buckets. One is the freshmen that I came in with because we had weeks of orientation together, although a lot of that was split Republican-Democrat, including the hotel they put us up in. So after you win, about 3 days later, they fly you all up there, and one wing goes to the Republicans and the other goes to the Democrats. You don't even share an elevator bank.
How do you feel about
For
that?
where I think that's wrong.
Who decides that?
Yeah, that's
is that
not
the Speaker
good.
of the House?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But yeah, that's not a great decision.
No.
So I've gotten to know a lot of the freshman members, which is great. And honestly, a lot of those people aren't known to the rest of the country yet, but will be eventually. And y'all are going to like a lot of the new people who are in their first term right now. There's a lot of really great people who just aren't on your radar yet. And then the folks on my two committees, I've gotten to know them.
Very cool.
And like you go have a dinner together?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like that. Okay. Yeah, we had Anita Earls on the show, and we were asking her, how does she get along with her colleagues?
Well, it's a very different
it's a
situation.
different set of
And
collegial.
she's like, no, there's no lake trips
yeah,
together.
she and Paul Newby don't go bowling.
There just aren't enough of them, you
Right,
know,
right.
to really, like, if I
True.
don't like half of these guys, there are 200 of them that
somebody
I could
else.
still end up,
Yeah. Fair enough. Quinn.
shit.
Okay, we got to fix that.
breaking
It's
stuff.
okay. Yeah, Quinn, you've had too much water.
That's what it
It's
is.
past his bedtime. We're still good though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I was curious. We were talking to your communications director, press. I'm not sure what's his title. Is it communications director?
Tommy?
Yeah, Tommy. Yeah.
He's the press secretary.
Press secretary. Yeah. And we wanted to find topics that would be of interest to you and us and everybody. And he mentioned that you like movies.
You're a movie guru.
You're a
Oh,
movie
well,
guy.
my first job was at Blockbuster.
Oh, is it really? Cool.
Yeah.
What
Which
was-
also separates our generation. You've never been to a Blockbuster.
Oh no, I totally have.
You have?
And that's another thing. Like I'm the last. I'm the last of a dying breed.
But when
Yeah.
you went to Blockbuster, it was DVDs.
No, it was still
still
VHS.
VHS?
No, Be Kind, Rewind. Yeah.
Okay. Be Kind,
Absolutely.
Rewind. Okay,
Yeah.
if you know that phrase.
Yeah.
then you-
No, and so anyway, and I
You
have the
paid
gray
the
hair to
last
prove
late
it.
fee.
God,
Yeah,
I love some
exactly.
I can't remember. It was like 3 or 4 free rentals a week or something. So every movie that came out between, like, I don't know, the end of 1999 and the beginning of 2000, I saw all of those movies. Yeah.
What was the last movie that really impressed you?
The last movie that impressed me,
It's tough. I hate
know.
getting put on a spot like that.
you know what?
Well, that's why I
It
didn't ask for a
get-
favorite movie,
It
'cause
didn't
that's
get
a-
great reviews. I liked the last James Bond movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
I didn't love the last Mission Impossible, but I liked the one before that. Fallout was really good. I just watched Anatomy of a Fall, like a completely, completely other end of the intellectual spectrum, frankly. That was pretty good. Zone of Interest.
I want to see Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really, basically a meditation on the banality of evil.
Right.
Which we should watch as a society. Like every year, there should be a movie
Well, it's-
basically about the banality of evil.
Absolutely.
Probably. Yeah. And then saw Killers of the Flower Moon the other day. Can't recommend it. So it was okay, but it wasn't
long.
So long. I think Scorsese's done like 2-3 hour
Yeah.
movies back to back at this point.
Yeah.
All right, man.
So,
Those-
Oh, you know what I just saw that was great?
no, please tell me.
This movie had passed me by. I had never seen The Revenant.
Oh man, yeah.
Holy, it's like 10 years old. With
Yeah.
DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
Okay, I
The
got a
bear
great
mauling.
Revenant story.
Whoa.
So I have a friend who's a Vietnam vet. He was in his early 80s at the time, and he and I would get together and ride horses. And he was a bachelor at the time, living by himself in like a cabin. It was anyway. There's a whole story, so I can go into that. Anyway, this is a shout out to Dr. Brown. But we would get together and watch movies. He'd pop popcorn. We go ride horses afterwards. We'd take off our boots and watch movies, and we watched The Revenant. and we got to the scene with the bear.
Yeah.
And DiCaprio was just torn up, right? He had like a rag doll. And I look over at my friend. I mean, he is just kind of massaging his right between his eyes, and he's like, oh my God. And that scene gets over, and I paused it, and I was going to say something like, aren't the special effects amazing? And he said, I mean, you really got to trust that bear. Killed me.
Dr. Brown.
Yeah. And I didn't say anything. I just let him think. I just said, yep.
If that movie had been filmed in like 1982, he would have been right.
He would have been
about it.
right. He would have been right. It was really cute. It was really charming. And I just said, you're right. You got to trust the bear.
Grizzly bear in full attack mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's some trustworthy stuff.
I mean, Hollywood, man.
Look, that's why you pay a lot of money to the trained bear.
That's right.
It is a
Took
great
long
movie.
time.
Though.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Also, I rewatched Alien the other day, the original. That they made that movie in like, I don't know, 78, 79 or something.
Sigourney Weaver's a badass.
Zero, computers. Everything had to be done practically. You couldn't make that movie better today. Every single scene of it holds up. Really impressive.
And I used to watch, it was on Discovery Channel. It was called Movie Magic. And it was a 30-minute episode of just showing how movies were made without, having the computer CGI stuff. And it was really, the one that really got me was Jumanji with the giant alligator and how they put that together in the animatronics. It goes back to the Alien because all that was just hands-on and real puppeteering.
Yeah. And they just nailed it,
So you go across North Carolina and mountains to coast and all that. Were there any particular places you really love traveling to?
I have discovered a bunch of really beautiful places in the western part of the state that I did before I started campaigning. I had never been to. I had conceptualized Asheville as being like the western edge.
Right, that's the border.
Right.
Yeah.
You can go for 3 hours past Asheville. And I feel like during the pandemic, a bunch of people discovered really cute mountain towns.
Yeah.
And in the process, exacerbated like housing affordability issues that all of these towns have. There's definitely some downside to being discovered. But you could spend a lot of time just going from just spending a week in different western counties in the mountains and just having a really beautiful experience.
Have you been to the Fontana Dam?
No, I have not.
That's where they filmed The Fugitive. Anyway, it's a
Oh,
cool,
really?
yeah. When Harrison Ford jumps off the.
I didn't know I didn't know that was in
Check
North
it out.
Carolina.
It's cool. It's cool. It's way out there, though. I mean, like you
Okay.
said, it's you hit Asheville and you got
I
to
knew
keep
Dirty
going.
Dancing, but I didn't know The Fugitive. That's cool.
It's pretty cool.
And Forrest Gump. He ran up Grandfather Mountain.
He did.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
What about coast? Any like I'm a big Ocracoke Island guy. Love Ocracoke.
Yeah, Ocracoke's beautiful. I haven't been there for campaign reasons. I've been to Dare a handful of times. Let's see. I was in Onslow County not too long ago. I've been in Brunswick County. Brunswick County is beautiful. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on time.
Yeah, sure.
So before we leave, I do want to ask you, what's some guilty pleasures of Jeff? Like I like playing Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and
Wow, you're really
listening-
just gonna say this out loud.
and listening to Alanis Morissette. And Jagged Little Pill is one of the best albums. It's quintessential 90s rock. You got Flea from the Chili Peppers on bass, Tyler Hawkins, the
Flea
drummer.
was on that album.
Yeah, Tyler Hawkins, the drummer for the Foo Fighters, rest in peace. He was the drummer on the album. Just straight up badass awesome.
So what you're asking is what we were asking the congressman, what's something you don't want anybody else to know, so that we can now tell everybody.
If I weren't on the campaign trail, I would probably be playing at least a little Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I haven't touched it in over a year.
Which one? All of them?
No, definitely not.
Because to me,
all
it
of them.
stopped kind of at World at War. World at War was
Black
really
Ops
cool.
was my last go around.
I
was
think
running Black
I think
Ops.
that might be
Black Ops
right
1?
for me too.
I played
When
Black
you're
Ops
playing
1
as,
where I
like
love
JFK and Robert McNamara in the Pentagon.
No, didn't do those.
Which was the one with Kevin Spacey?
Oh, that was like Modern Warfare 3 or 4 or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah.
And what console?
PC.
PC. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I never could get it. I was always an Xbox guy. That was always my gig.
Do we have time for a couple lightning questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's bang them out.
One book everyone should read.
If you're North Carolina, Cold Mountain.
Oh wow. Don't see the movie. But yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. The guy starts in Raleigh, walks to Asheville, but somehow goes by the ocean. It's a whole anyway. But yeah, great book. Let's see. Favorite president?
I'm a Lincoln guy.
Oh yeah.
You know, and to reread the Gettysburg Address, by the way, it really does in this political context. Nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal, now faces a civil war that tests whether this nation will long endure. I mean, like, we are facing whether this nation and its two core values of liberty and equality will long endure.
I think you're right. Yeah. Oh, you go ahead.
If we jumped in your car right now, you crank it up. Man, I said like I'm old, turning the key. What's going to come through the speakers?
What's going to come through the speakers is probably, what was I listening to on the way here? Soundgarden? Yeah, probably Soundgarden.
Right on.
Yeah.
Chris Cornell did a great theme for James Bond.
You know what, man? Almost all of the recent James Bond themes have been
Killer.
Straight fire,
Yeah,
as they would say.
I agree.
Chris Cornell, Billie Eilish, White Stripes.
Sam Smith was great. White Stripes was good.
Adele. I
Yeah.
think she did Skyfall.
So you're a Bond guy.
Man, the last most recent Bonds have been really, really good.
I agree.
With what's his name?
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, the Daniel Craig Bonds. I mean, I got to hand it to him.
for
really,
sure.
really good.
Did you ever play 007 on 64? 'Cause
GoldenEye.
you and I are right around the
sure.
same age.
Slappers only.
Oh, sure. Yeah, man with the gold gun.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
right.
All right. Well, last question, and I hesitated to ask this because I know this is like you gotta want to alienate voters, and we wanted to keep things kind of
Is
ecumenical.
this UNC Duke or something?
No, it's far more divisive. Hellmans or Dukes.
Oh, I guess you go Dukes, right?
Right. Okay. I would hope so. I mean, that'd be my hope.
The honest answer is I don't have a strong preference.
No. Okay.
So
cool.
it's an easy pander for me.
That's
for
great.
Dukes.
Okay. We appreciate the pander, and we appreciate you appearing on the holler.
Yeah, man.
Congressman,
This really
thank you
turned
so-
into like millennial chat, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. We wanted it to be a little different then, because I'm sure you're getting ready to go in. We're doing the three governors. It's Alamance County's biggest Democrat fundraiser, and you're going to go in there. Everybody's going to want to talk to you. You're going to do your stump speech. You've been doing this across the state, and I'm sure when you got an email saying, "Hey, you're going to do this interview," you're like, "Damn it, it's another interview. I know I got to do it." So we wanted it to be different and want people to know a little more about you, because
Politicians are people.
we know most of our listeners know that you're running for attorney general. They know that you were a North Carolina senator, but they probably didn't know that you worked at Blockbuster. And so just humanizing our politicians.
Obviously, our listeners can find you on your campaign website. Do you have social media?
We're starting.
Okay.
We're experimenting with a few different social media
Well, we've been on
accounts.
for a few months, and we've got like 2,000 followers. If you need any tips,
I'm going to follow you guys immediately.
yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Just let you know.
Thanks.
People can find you at Jeff Jackson NC, right?
Yeah. Also on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
For real?
For real. For real
Oh,
on
wow.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect. Here we go.
All right. Well,
And
Congressman,
when I
thank
run
you
into staffers on Capitol Hill, they always go, "I love following you on LinkedIn."
I gotta start following.
They don't know how
let's
much
do
they're
it.
telling on themselves when they say it.
That's
really
hilarious.
funny.
That seems like a
Yeah.
DC thing. You probably
It's a
won't hear
DC.
that
It's
in
completely
Triangle.
a DC thing.
And so follow Congressman Jackson if you're not already, and keep up with him on the campaign trail. Also, listeners, please hype the holler. Follow us on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook. We got a website. We're everywhere. So hype the holler, rate us, share us, follow us. And that's all for now. We'll catch you next time.
See ya. Thanks, man.
Thank you.